The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to those of you watching on iRacing Live. This is LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. I am James Pike, and I am joined tonight in the booth by my colleague, Mr. Brian Macklin, and down in our virtual production trailer by the lovely and talented Cisco Scaramuza. We come to you for the 11th round of 36 in this 2017 season from the Kansas Speedway in the nation's heartland, and I guess on the proper side of Kansas, if it's, called Kansas City. Random ramblings aside, though, Macklin, this should be a fun track. I think especially when you consider how tricky it is to get out of the corners here more than anything. You really kind of have to baby the throttle, and that, to me, ends up creating a lot of the challenges that we're going to see a lot of the drivers face tonight.
Well, absolutely, that's going to be a big problem, but the other problem is going to be trying to find your way to the top of the racetrack. Typically, we talk about these guys wanting to get to the bottom of the racetrack and stick to the bottom all the way around the racetrack, but here at Kansas, you're going to see these guys running an inch off the wall all the way around the racetrack, and restarts especially are going to be tricky because these guys are going to be fighting to get to the outside line as quickly as they can. And the guys that get stuck on the bottom, they're going to slip back pretty quickly because the outside line has so much more momentum, they just can't afford to be up there or down on the bottom any longer than they have to be.
And this race represents our first trip to 1.5 miles in almost a month. We've been short tracking, we've been plate racing, we've been everywhere but the sort of bread and butter of the calendar, and as such, it's kind of shaken up the points a little bit. David Washington's had a bad string of luck the last few races, and what was a lead of almost 60 points a few races ago has now come down to a 28-point lead over Dwayne Vincent, who currently sits second in points. And then you've got Nick Silver and David Comstock, who both had very good runs on the short track to come up in the standings. So I guess we kind of enter a new chapter here in the season. We get to do a little bit of 1.5 mile racing for the next few weeks, and I'll be curious to see who can take that momentum from the short tracks in Talladega and build on it and run well within the rest of the races in the month of May.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really exciting track to race on. You see some of these guys that are at the top of the board in qualifying right now. And one that really sticks out to me right now, James, is Dylan C. Jones. He was 18th fastest in practice, and he stepped it up by almost 3/10 in this qualifying session to be on the provisional pole right now with a 28.533. He ran a 28.88 in practice. So he found a ton of speed that he was not able to find just a little while ago. And then how about Thomas George? He was 25th in practice with a 28.95. He's in 7th on the qualifying grid as of right now with a 28.62. You see a lot of these guys finding some speed that they just weren't able to find in the practice session.
A little bit of upticks there. David Comstock up 8 spots from where he practiced. Nelson Rivera up 21 as it stands. We'll see if anybody can put down a quick time here in this last minute of qualifying, but I also think we also have to take into account that this is a night race. This is one of the first of the season, and get to play with a few different dynamics when it comes to track temperature here as well. Since we are under the lights, you don't have to deal with the sun. You get a little bit cooler track, cooler air temperatures, and ends up being a little bit grippier, maybe a little bit easier in some cases, but also in some ways can be a little bit more difficult to manage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the speeds are going to be a lot higher with it being a night race, you're going to see these guys going a lot faster into the corners and being just a couple inches off the wall the way these guys are going to be. It's going to be very tricky making sure you don't actually get into that wall because that is so easy to do, and that can cause a chain reaction effect behind you if you do get caught up in the wall. That's going to be something to look for here tonight because it could certainly cause a little bit of chaos for these guys, especially on the starts and restarts, because that's where you're going to see everybody's trying to scrounge for the top.
And it seems like you see so many different lines run on restarts, and drivers get very differing, I suppose. Maybe not necessarily weird, but different runs through the corner, and that can cause bunches on corner exit in turns 2 and 4, and can also lead to problems at points.
Yeah, absolutely, and it looks like qualifying has wrapped up, so we're going to go ahead and roll into our starting grid for tonight's race. And Dylan Jones, as I mentioned just a couple of moments ago, he's going to go ahead and grab that pole for tonight's race. He's going to start on the pole with a 28.533. To his outside is Steve Gottschalk in the number 2 position. Then we have Joseph Tice in 3rd. David Comstock is on the outside of that row number 2 in 4th, and Daniel Eberhardt starts 5th.
6th place will go to the number 45 of Carl Shed. You've got Thomas George, who will sit in 7th when we begin this. David Washington, points leader, starts 8th. Nelson Rivera will begin from the 9th position, and Jason Jacoby in the number 1 machine will start from the 10th position.
And he's had a couple of good runs the last few weeks. Be interesting to see what happens with him. Doug Roth starts in the 11th position here tonight. Bruce Ackerman will start P12. Then we have Brandon Bowie in 13th, Andrew Farnars in 14th, and Keith Medeiros is 15th here tonight.
Trevor Lapallo won the season opening race at Daytona and will start 16th tonight. 17th belongs to the number 10 of John Abbott. Ashton Crowder will begin from 18th. He'll be followed up in 19th by our current number 2 man of the points, Dwayne Vincent, and Sean Casto qualified 20th for tonight's race.
Braden Whittaker will start in the 21st position here tonight. Then he's followed up by Sean Boundy in 22nd. Nick Silver, he's going to have to work his way up through the field. He starts 23rd here tonight. And then he's got Jose Gonzalez to his outside in 24th. And sitting 25th to start this race is Eric Arnold.
Last 4 drivers to take them here tonight. AJ Browning qualified 26th, and then it's Randy Yoakum, Shane Ewing, and Austin Coop who started 29th. And then we've got Lionel Calisto, Stefan Marinac, Stephanie Lessentine, Anthony DeBarro, who nearly won last weekend at Talladega, Scott Simley, Mike Kelly, Ross Cato, Corbin Hemstreet, Gabe Wood, and Douglas Wyatt to round out your 39-car field. On this Kansas Speedway, which is a 1.5 mile track, as we've noted, we'll go for 125 laps tonight, 187.5 miles, and you've got the progressive banking here as well. So 17 degrees on the inside in turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, 20 as you go to the top, 9 to 11 from the inside to the out on the front straight, and a flat 5 degrees on the back straightaway. Fun little track, one of the newest on the calendar as well, opened in 2001, Ryan.
Yeah, this is a really exciting track. They just recently reconfigured this track and made this thing have a little bit more progressive braking, like you mentioned in the track facts. It's going to be a very exciting race here tonight. Can't wait to see what these guys have in store for us. 125 laps here at Kansas.
Happy to have you here with us on LSRTV as we see all the action unfold. But green flag comes out. Dylan Jones is away. We're underway at Kansas, and everybody immediately jots to the apron, tries to get that little bit of extra speed and extra straight line as they go into turn 1, but he'll make it through the corner easily, as will Joseph Tice, as will Daniel Eberhardt. Your first side-by-side battle was Carl Shed and Steve Gottschalk. Now it's Gottschalk and the number 29 of Thomas George back for 7th as they go into turn 3 for the first time.
And you see Thomas George, he really drives the car in on the bottom of the racetrack. He's trying to find his way up to the outside line. He's going to actually be able to make the inside line work here as he tries to work past that number 91 machine of Steve Gottschalk as they take the complete lap number 1 here. He's still down on the bottom of the racetrack. He's going to slide to the top as they work through turns 1 and 2. He's going to move up and take that position away from Steve. And now you see Nelson Rivera in the 7 car. He's stuck down on the bottom. He's fighting with David Comstock as they work back into turn 3 right here.
Everybody has made it to the side, and I think that's something that we might have missed in pre-race, but is definitely worth noting to all of you watching on iRacing Live, that the top lane is absolutely the fastest way around Kansas Speedway. And a lot of the challenge for these drivers, especially under long green flag runs, will be making sure that they keep their car out of the wall, especially as the tires fade over the course of the run. You have to change your point of entry, make sure that you slow up enough and change that point over the course of the run so you don't hit the wall to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very tricky night for all of these drivers to do that. And then the fun part's also going to be trying to set up the guys in front of you to make a pass on them, because with only having this one group to really work with, it becomes increasingly difficult to be able to make that move. You're going to see some of these guys trying to go to the outside down the front straightaway to try to get that momentum and get around them on the outside and get to their door before they get to turn one. You might see a little bit of an issue right there as well, because these guys may throw some blocks to try to protect that outside line. So certainly going to be something to watch for through this race right here. Dylan Jones, though, he's doing a good job up front. He's sitting there with about a 2-car length advantage over Joseph Tice and then Daniel Eberhardt. These guys running really hard at the front right now. They're starting to pull away from the rest of the pack.
Just a little bit, not all that much, but it is almost an 0.8 of a second gap from Eberhardt to 4th place Carl Shed, and then everybody starts to bunch up a little bit again. It's maybe 2 or 3 car lengths back to Thomas George, and then another 2 or 3 to Steve Gottschalk, and David Comstock's there right behind him, and then you trickle back just a little bit further, and you've got Bruce Ackerman, Jason Jacoby, you've got Andrew Farniar's winner last weekend at Talladega alongside the number 43 of Doug Roth. That probably is your first real side-by saddle. They're going at it for 12th as they go down the back.
Yeah, battling hard right here as they head off into turn 3. Now they're going to get single file finally, so they're going to try to get in line here and settle in. But right behind them, Nelson Rivera is still stuck down on the bottom of the racetrack trying to find his way to the outside line. He is slipping backwards right now as he's falling back to the 15th position here in just the first 7 laps. He started all the way up in the 9th position, and he just has not been able to find his way to the outside line. He's still stuck down there as he's got the 9 of Trevor Rapallo, the 27 of Ashton Crowder, and Dwayne Vincent all trying to train him on the outside line. He's going to have an opportunity to get to the outside behind these guys, but he's not going to take it. He still slots it right to the bottom of the racetrack, trying to find some grip down there. But you see coming off the corner right here, they just get such a massive run down the front straightaway. And you see here goes Ashton Crowder looking to the outside of the number 9 machine of Trevor Rapallo into turn 1. We've got another side-by-side battle here for these guys.
Battle there, and a battle a little bit further up in the field right now. You've got the number 19 of Bruce Ackerman and Jacoby. They were side-by-side for a moment, but Ackerman's gotten the better of that. And also of note, David Washington managed to clear this group and now has distanced himself by about 2 to 3 tenths in only a lap. So maybe not a surprise that we get back to the 1.5 mile tracks, and David Washington is on the march now, looking on the rear bumper of the number 40 car of David Comstock, hunting for another position, the 42 car.
Yeah, those short tracks just were not nice to David Washington at all. He had a really rough stretch through those 3 weeks, and I'm sure he's extremely excited to be back on a 1.5 mile track to give himself an opportunity to go up here and do what he did at the beginning of the season, marching his way up through this field. As you mentioned, he's up. He got clear of that little pack, and he's up to 7th right now. He's right on the back bumper of David Comstock. But again, this is where the tricky part comes in, because you can't just go to the bottom of the racetrack and easily make a pass. You're going to have to try to set them up and try to get to the outside of these guys, and we're under caution here at Kansas for the first time.
Trouble in turn 2. I see Dwayne Vincent, the first big name involved, in heavy damage to the 13 machine. We'll have the replay up for you momentarily, but I can tell you that will be the big story of this early wreck. The man second in points looks like he will probably be early out of the race.
Yeah, that actually started with Doug Roth. He actually got up into that turn 1 wall going into the corner. He got up against it, and he couldn't get off of it. And when he hit it, the 27 of Ashton Crowder had nowhere to go. Neither did Dwayne Vincent, Nelson Rivera, or a host of others. You see a lot of these guys just come piling in. There's at least 8 or 9 cars, maybe more, that got caught up in this wreck when it was all said and done. A huge wreck down here in turns 1 and 2.
So big trouble for the first time tonight, and we'll go under the yellow flag for the first time, and maybe we'll see some pit strategy come into play here for some of these drivers. Not necessarily certain how it's going to work, but you definitely have the chance to do something.
Yeah, I think if you're going to take your chances and go for a tire strategy, this would be the place to do it, because you're early in the race and you can get away with it without really having any major issues on pit road. As you see these guys coming to pit road right now, Dylan Jones is going to lead them in. He's got Joseph Tice and Daniel Eberhardt behind them. I don't know if you'll see any of these drivers go for a 2-tire strategy. You'd see somebody towards the back half of the top 10, maybe just outside of the top 10, that might go for it, but these guys for sure are going to want 4 tires and fuel to have maximum grip when they get back out onto the track. You see all these guys sliding into their box cleanly. Looks like Dylan Jones might have overshot it. No, it looks like they're going to go ahead and service the car. Got very lucky there because he came close to sliding past the line. He's getting his tires now. We're waiting to see if anybody's going to go for 2. I don't see anybody so far at the front of the pack that's going to go for it. And it looks like Dylan Jones is barely going to win the race off pit road. Eberhard comes out second, followed by Joseph Tyson third.
So a little bit of a shake-up there in pit stops. Not too much, though. I'd say Eberhard gaining second probably is the big move up at the front of the field of this race. You got Carl Shedd up there, too, Thomas George, David Comstock, and pretty much as you were as you get back behind it. But nice pit stop for the number 90 crew to get that car up a spot on pit road.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to help him out because he's going to have the outside line when they get going back on this next restart, and will give him an opportunity to not have to really fight for it. However, these guys can make the bottom work just for about a lap or so, so it may not be a disadvantage to be on the bottom when you're initially taking off, but you need to be able to get to the outside line as quickly as possible, as we've already seen, because once the tires start to get just a little bit of wear on them, that's the place to be. That's where the most momentum is at, and you're going to see once again these guys fighting to get up there as quickly as they can on this restart.
Keep on rolling here and get everybody lined up, stacked up, and cleaned up, I suppose, would be maybe the most accurate way to put things. And we'll see how this all shakes out once we get back to green flag. I imagine it's going to be pretty quick to see these guys go to the top side. I was a little surprised. I didn't expect it maybe within 2 laps. I figured it might take 3 or 4 for everybody to get sorted out, but especially towards the back of the field, we had a lot of drivers going side by side.
Yeah, well, those guys that were stuck in the bottom in the back of the pack, they were just trying to find something down there to see if they couldn't make it work. And for a couple of these guys, it was working for a handful of laps. But then we saw, like with Nelson Rivera, he was able to make it work for 2 or 3 laps. And then the momentum on the outside line just really took over, and he started slipping back. And then, unfortunately, he got caught up in that big wreck that we just had a couple of laps ago. And he's fixing some pretty significant damage. He's already fell a couple of laps down, as have pretty much everybody that was involved in that wreck. There's a lot of really tore up race cars as a result of that. I think I got an official count of 11 cars that had some form of damage when it was all said and done.
We'll see what goes here with these damaged cars as well. I imagine we might see a few of them try and come back out on track. I think the biggest question is what kind of lap traffic they become and what kind of issues on track do they create, especially for some of these drivers in front.
Yeah, absolutely. Lights are off on the pace car, so we're getting ready to go back green here in about 1.5 miles. These guys are getting doubled up, and we're going to see if we can't get going again. But this is just a really awesome racetrack, and I look forward to these guys coming here. I actually got the opportunity to race here a couple of nights ago, and it was absolutely insane how much fun we had. We had a ton of green flag runs, and I imagine that we're going to have quite a few of those here tonight once these guys get settled down, because this is just one of those tracks where you can get into a rhythm and get spread out and really have some decent long runs, and I imagine these guys are going to do just that tonight.
Haven't had the chance to see that yet, though. Only 13 laps complete, working lap 14 right now, so I imagine you're probably right in that we will get a long green flag run, but have to get a little bit later into this race and let this field sort of settle itself out before we get to that point. So, gonna get the restart here on lap 15. Jones will lead, then Eberhard, Tice, Shedd, and Thomas George. So, see what happens and if we get any sort of craziness here on this restart. Nothing nuts at the front of the field, though, as they get the green flag. Jones gets away by about a car length and a half, maybe, over Tice. They all immediately slide up to the top side, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're up there. George looks like he should be able to clear David Comstock for 5th, and it might be Comstock and Washington that go side by side into turn 3. No, Comstock slides in, so now you go all the way back to the number 51 of Keith Medeiros and Steve Gottschalk. That's your first side-by-side battle on track.
And Keith Medeiros is going to be able to clear Steve Gottschalk, and right in front of him, the number 47 of Andrew Farnars looks to the bottom of the racetrack trying to make that move on Bruce Ackerman, the number 19 machine. They're side by side as they head to turn 1. Farnars on the bottom. He slides up and almost makes contact with the 19 in the middle of the corner. He's able to keep him off of it, or keep it off of him rather, and now he's trying to fight on the inside here, but you see once again Bruce Ackerman gets that run on the outside line and was able to clear him. The 47's got to slot in line behind him, and now he's going to run the outside line. Behind those guys, however, you see the 51 of Keith Medeiros. He's still trying to make the inside line work. He's got Steve Gottschalk to his outside, and we've also got the number 27 of Ashton Crowder trying to make a move here as they go into 1.
Lots of action back in that part of the field. Also watching the battle for second that seems to be developing because Daniel Everhart is all over the rear bumper. The number 5 of Joseph Tice just hasn't quite found a way around him yet. But of our top 5 drivers, those two are stuck together like peanut butter and jelly at the moment. And we'll see maybe in 4 to 5 laps as tire temps come back up and we get these cars situated into a potential green flag run if Everhart might be able to make the move on Tice for the second position.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. As you see, Dylan Jones gets into the wall off turn 2. That opens the door for Tice. He's going to move to the inside for the lead, and it looks like he's going to be able to clear him. Here comes Everhart trying to make the move as well. He's all the way on the bottom of the racetrack, and off turn 4, he's going to be able to slide in front of Jones as well. A big moment for our race leader. Could have taken out all 3 of these drivers, but fortunately they were all okay. And Joseph Tice is going to come out of the winner, or as the winner in this battle, as he's your new race leader. But how about Everhart making that move as well? He's going to get take advantage of that moment and move up into the second position.
We talk so much in this series about making sure that you don't beat yourself in order to be successful in this series, because the level of competition is so high that if you make mistakes all on your own, it just becomes that much easier for the other drivers in the field to take advantage of you. And that's exactly what happened to Dylan Jones. Just ran it a little bit too high off of turn 2, got into the wall on corner exit, and all of a sudden now he's back behind the leader by about half a second, and it's his teammate Joseph Tice that now has the first place position over Everhart. Jones now back to third.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder if there's any damage to the right side of that car where he made that contact. We're not really seeing any issues right now, and I haven't been able to really pick out any serious damage on the right side of that car, but getting stuck up against that wall the way he did can hurt the aerodynamics of the car pretty drastically. And we're back under caution here at Kansas. Looks like we have another wreck, and we're back under caution for the second time.
Yellow flag out here at Kansas again, hearing that it is the 25 car that is the reason for this second yellow. We'll have the replay up for you momentarily, but trouble again here at Kansas, breaking up the long runs, giving us 2 short green flag runs to get us underway with this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Marinac may have had a little bit of help coming off turn 4. He was racing side by side with the 04 machine of Braden Whittaker, and they got into each other. He got set up into the turn 4 wall and then slid back across the track, and that looks like that's what brought out our second caution here on the evening. I'm very interested to see if these guys come back to pit road. We had about another 10 lap run, so I imagine all these drivers will come in. Now again, we have to wonder, will anybody go for that 2-tire strategy to give themselves some track position, especially with how difficult it is to pass here. It might be worth taking that chance if you're on the outside of the top 10, get that track position and try to hang on.
So we'll see. I think you definitely get all these chances at the beginning, and we'll see who decides to make something of it. We'll watch as these cars come down pit road. Called it right on the dot there, Mr. Macklin. Everybody up at the front of the field makes that hard turn down to pit lane. Jones leads them. We'll see if he overshoots his box this time. I was with you. I thought he was a little bit close to the edge the last time they came down pit road. So keep an eye on that 11 car and see if any issues pop up this time. But as he comes into the box, everybody else looks like they get in clean. And yes, a much cleaner stop this time on pit entry for the number 11 car. Everybody coming down pit road, though, cleanly as is.
Looks like we might get a couple of 2-tire takers here. It looks like Keith Medeiros is going to be the first car off of pit road, and he's, I'm pretty sure, took 2 tires. Then Joseph Tice comes out second. Then Nick Silver comes out third. So a couple of 2-tire takers here on this round of pit stops. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out for these guys. But how about Joseph Tice beating the other 2 off of pit road as well? He had a really clean pit stop and was able to get off ahead of a couple of these guys that actually did take 2 tires. I see Anthony DeBarro is also one of the drivers that took 2. So we got a couple of guys up here that are going to be taking this chance and see what happens.
I was about to say that Anthony DeBarro popped up on my screen as a 2-tire driver on this round of pit stops. So at least at the front of this bunch, it looks like Medeiros, Silver, DeBarro are the ones that I see that took 2 tires. Looks like everybody else took 4. So again, there's your strategy in play, and we'll have to see how that pans out over the next few laps.
Yeah, I want to just go back to Dylan Jones for a moment because he was the race leader just a handful of laps ago, and he had that issue where he got into the turn 2 wall, he fell back to third, and now because he didn't have the advantage of being the race leader coming into the pits, he's going to drop way back here behind all these guys that took 2 tires. He's back in 9th now, so that is how critical it is to try not to get up into that wall the way he did and just keep your car clean and try to stay into a rhythm, because that little mishap for him has sent him all the way back to 9th, and it's going to be very difficult for him to make passes and get back to the front. I'm not saying he can't do it, because he certainly has the speed to do it, but it's going to be extremely difficult for that number 11 machine.
I imagine that was the result of the damage being repaired on pit road, probably more than anything else that's dropped Jones back that much. But I think your point remains the same no matter the case there, Brian. If you end up knocking your car up a little bit, you're going to have to spend extra time on pit road to get it patched up. And in the case of Dylan Jones, it's 8 spots now that he's lost since the drop of the green flag. While we have a moment here under caution, we'll take a moment to remind you that tonight's broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top-quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. As we get this field put together in rows of 2 again, lights are now off on the pace car, so we'll get the green flag next time by. And it does look like that Keith Medeiros is going to lead the field to green on 2 tires.
Yeah, and it's going to be a very interesting restart. He has a lot of speed in that car, but you're going to have to watch for a little bit of tire spin on his car, because he's going to have a set of tires that are cold and a set of tires that are still relatively hot, and it could cause a little bit of an issue when he tries to get up through the gears and on the loud pedal on this restart. So we're going to have to watch him in the 24 and the 96 and just see what happens with all 3 of those drivers. But how about that Hot Wheels car, man? That is a beautiful looking ride. I love seeing Nick Silver bring that car out week in and week out. It is just absolutely incredible. Good to see him running up front. He started all the way back in that 23rd position, so he's made his way up pretty nicely with that strategy call, of course, but he was working his way up before that happened. He had climbed up into the top 15 prior to taking the 2 tires, so he was on his way to the front regardless.
Silver's had a good car the past few weeks, but still trying to break a winless streak that dates back to Indianapolis in July of last year as the 24. So we'll see if he might be able to do something here on this restart. Watching for the pace car to make the turn, and as it does, Keith Medeiros leads the field down for our 3rd restart of the evening, and off goes the 51 back underway at Kansas, and he got a pretty decent restart too. Was able to get clear of Joseph Tice easily, as did Nick Silver, so it makes me wonder if the 5 car didn't necessarily get going. He's trying to get underneath Silver now, trying to get that 2nd spot back. Meanwhile, DeBarro goes up top, and they fan out all over the place as they come down the back straightaway.
Man, Silver had a moment in the middle of 1 and 2. That car got squirrely in the middle of the corner, and somehow he was able to keep it straight, and he was able to keep from getting hit by the 5 car, because I just knew he was going to get hit. And now you see him trying to hold off Joseph Tice. He does a good job keeping that car wound up on the outside line. Now Tice is stuck on the bottom. He's got DeBarro and Eberhardt to the outside of him, trying to take those positions away. And we've also got Thomas George now trying to take that position away from him. So all of a sudden, your former race leader, Joseph Tice, as he slots up in front of Comstock, almost takes out the number 42 machine and was not able to hold him off. Comstock's going to take that position, but he was your race leader just about 10 laps ago, and now he's falling back to the backside of the top 10, trying to get in line now. He's finally on the outside line here.
The importance of being up top, we're seeing it now because Nick Silver is holding up Eberhardt and Anthony DeBarro as they go through the corner here. Both the 90 and the 96 are faster than the 24 at this moment, but because he's got the preferred track position, it's Nick Silver that's able to hold on to that 2nd position as the yellow flag comes out. Trouble in the back of the field. I saw them go wide on the back straightaway. I see Lionel Kalisto involved in this. Looks like a few more cars as well. Maybe Ashton Crowder and Bruce Ackerman also getting a piece of this.
Yeah, I'm still trying to catch up and see exactly what happened there. It looks like that started actually a few cars ahead of them. Dylan Jones once again made contact with the turn 2 wall. However, I think he might have had just a little bit of help because Joseph Tice got loose right in front of him. He had no choice but to hit the wall, and it just caused a chain reaction that led to Ashton Crowder and Lionel Kalisto going around on the back straightaway. Just one of those deals where something happens a few cars ahead of you, James, and unfortunately it just causes that chain reaction effect, and for those couple of guys, they just had some pretty heavy contact. I see Crowder has taken his car to pit road trying to get some pretty heavy repairs taken care of.
Looks like there are going to be a few cars that need to get repairs and get their cars fixed up as everybody comes down pit road for the most part, safe for Silver to borrow. Oh, well, a little bit of gamesmanship here at the front of the field. So you've got Medeiros, Silver, DeBarro, Eberhardt, George, Comstock, and Braden Whitaker stays out. And it looks like Carl Shed might be the first of the drivers that came down pit road this time.
Yeah, and he led his 4 Aegis Motorsports, or his 3 fellow Aegis Motorsports drivers, all to pit road. They're all coming in to get service. The number 5 machine and the 11 machine are certainly going to be trying to get some repairs done because they both had a little bit of contact when that caution first happened. And the 11 car now has some pretty heavy damage to the right side of his car, so certainly going to imagine these guys are going to work on that car a little bit. You do see some of these other guys already leaving their pit box. Carl Shed and Steve Gottschalk's already down and away. Joseph Tice is down and away, but Dylan Jones sitting there getting some damage repairs. He's going to have some pretty significant damage he's going to have to work on if he wants to get back up there and have some speed to be competitive and get back into the top 10.
Tice ends up being, I'd say, I guess penalized is the best word here. Not necessarily by anything of his own accord, maybe say for the restart, but he just got caught in a really bad spot on the track. Just ended up on that lower lane in a restart where everybody was bunched up and together because of the differing pit strategies, and he just could not find a way to get back up to the preferred lane on the top side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those deals where it just happens and you have to try to just work around it and get rolling and try to get back up to speed as quickly as you can. And hopefully for Dylan Jones, he's able to get that car fixed up and get back out there and be pretty fast.
While those cars get fixed up, we'll take our first quick commercial break of the evening. You're watching LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Welcome back to LSR TV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. Getting ready for, I believe, the 4th restart of the evening, which will come on lap 33 of 125. Keith Medeiros and Nick Silver stay out after taking 2 tires on the pit stop round before this most recent caution. They have control of the field off of their strategy in that game track position. And then you've got Anthony DeBarro behind them and Daniel Eberhardt. DeBarro took 2 tires in that sequence. And we know he and Eberhardt have a little bit of a history from Bristol that I don't think they've got considered settled yet. We'll wait and see what unfolds here. As we get the green flag once more, race car gets ready to come down back onto pit road and hand control of the field over to Medeiros and his Joe's Racing Products Ford Fusion as he does and gets the field away. It's a solid restart again for Medeiros. Silver doing as best he can to hang on, but can't really quite make it happen. So he'll have to settle for sliding into second and immediately heading up top. And it looks like you've got a lot of drivers that managed to make their way into single file status quickly. Have to go all the way back to Steve Gottschalk and Joseph Tice. That's your first side-by-side battle. Now Jose Gonzalez and Lionel Calisto back in 12th.
While all that's going on, though, Everhart's to the bottom of the racetrack trying to make the move on DeBarro. He's down there fighting on the inside line as hard as he can. And once again, we see that 24 car of Nick Silver starting to hold these guys up. I saw at the beginning of this restart here that Nick Silver just could not get off turn 2, and that allowed for DeBarro to get a big run on him as well as Everhart. And when they got to turn 3, Everhart went to the bottom of the racetrack trying to get by both of them in one corner. However, he was not able to do it, and now they have gotten single file at the front. Looks like they're single file all the way through much of the top 10. Looks like you got to go all the way back around the number 22 machine of Stephanie Lessentine and the number 25 of Stefan Marinac. As you see, actually, Stefan Marinac makes that move and gets clear of her. Looks like Stephanie's actually coming to pit road. She might have a penalty to serve.
Penalty, not quite sure what's going on with the number 22. We'll sort that out for you here momentarily. Meanwhile, up here at the front of the field, it's not necessarily the greatest of days for Everhart. Now slint back there within the last half lap to 4th. So little issue there and a little misstep by Everhart on corner exit, it looked like, and lost a few spots. But again, it goes back to the mantra we talked about earlier. Don't beat yourself, because you just open the door for other drivers in this series to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just one of those deals you have to get into a rhythm and get rolling and see what happens here. Hearing that she got a penalty, and unfortunately she was arguing with the officials trying to get it cleared, but just could not get it done. They told her she had to come in and serve the penalty, so unfortunately she did. It looks like she actually went and took her car behind the wall and has retired from this race. So unfortunate circumstances for the number 22 machine, takes her out of the race here tonight. We got a little bit of a battle going on the outside of this top 5. Actually, at the tail end of this top 5 as Everhart is trying to do whatever he can to try to move up towards the front. However, he loses a position to Thomas George. He fell back about a lap ago, and now Thomas George is all over the back bumper of DeBarro, who's all over the back bumper of Nick Silver. And once again, we are under caution here at Kansas.
Trouble, the number 45 of Carl Shed went around in the corner after contact with one other driver. Couldn't quite tell who that was. It was the 04 Braden Whitaker that went around there. And looks like, yes, that Shed just got into the back of Whitaker in the middle of the back straightaway, and both cars made contact. And Whitaker went to the wall, and then Shed bounced off of him and just didn't have anywhere to go.
And just another one of those chain reaction wrecks, and unfortunately, Carl Shed's got some pretty significant damage. His car is smoking, which more than likely means he will not be coming back out here anytime soon. Going to have a lot of repairs done to that car, as well as Braden Whitaker. He's got a lot of damage as well. He's coasting back to pit road very slowly. He may not even have a motor left in that car at this point, as he actually does go ahead and pull it off. So unfortunate circumstances for those guys. Now I'm very interested to see if these guys come to pit road. Had a handful of laps on them, but last time we had a split strategy. Looks like here we go. Keith Medeiros is going to lead him in, but with Nick Silver, DeBarro's going to stay out. Everybody else comes, but DeBarro stays out here on this pit stop.
DeBarro with the big strategy call to leave that number 96 car out on track, so he'll control the field when we go green. The question is, can he get that car up to speed in the same way that all of these drivers with fresh tires will? And what kind of benefit do Medeiros and Silver get from the track position they gained when they took 2 tires a few pit stops ago? Currently watching everybody as they sort their way through pit service, and looks like the 51 car is off and away and is going to be able to retain the lead over Silver. George coming out close there, might be able to jump ahead of Nick Silver, and so yes, George is going to get Silver off pit road, and then you've got Everhart behind that trio. So a little bit of a shakeup here at the front of the field, and Thomas George looks like the big winner on this round of pit stops.
Well, I think actually a couple of other guys might be the big winners here, as Dylan Jones took 2 tires there, as well as the number 98 of David Washington. Joseph Tice also took 2 tires. So we have a couple of guys that jumped ahead of these guys that are now going to have a little bit of an advantage over these guys and trying to get that track position back. I saw the 32. He did not stop. He missed his pit stall, and he's probably going to be coming back in. Looks like the 47 might as well have done just the same. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to stay out. Looks like he is going to go ahead and keep that track position, but Shane Ewing's going to come back in and go ahead and get service done to his car.
So we'll have a nice little jambalaya, I'd say, of all kinds of different pit strategies here at the front of the field. Maybe that's just me being hungry and wanting some New Orleans food at the moment. But regardless, DeBarro will come out and have no tires on this restart. Then you've got Farniars, who I think you're right, also won't have any tires. Then we know Jones and Washington and Tice are on 2. And then everybody from Medeiros on back should be on 4. So we could end up with a very, very interesting restart here, Mr. Macklin. I could very easily see this fanning out into 2 wide and maybe even 3 wide by the time they get to turn 1.
Yeah, it's going to be wild to see. You've got a couple of guys on no tires, a couple on 2, then you got some of your faster cars on 4 tires. This is going to be a wild restart for sure. Going to have to stay tuned here because this is going to be probably the most exciting restart we've had of the night. To watch some of these guys come through the field, it's going to be very interesting to see what Keith Medeiros, Thomas George, Nick Silver, Eberhardt, and Comstock, those guys that are on 4 tires that have been towards the front most of this race, are now on the backside of the top 10. Going to have to see how easily they can work their way through the field, if they can, because once again, once you get the cars up to speed and get the momentum build up, the outside line usually is going to be the dominant line. And even having that fresher tires, or those fresher tires, it may not necessarily be the advantage that you're looking for unless you can get to the bottom of the racetrack and clear them in the middle of the corner and slide up in front of them coming off. I just don't know if you're going to be able to take advantage of those tires the way these guys would like to.
I think being able to get as much as you can on the restart really jumps out to me as the big key here, because we've seen, especially once these cars get going under green flag laps, if you get 2 or 3 laps in and everybody gets up to speed, it becomes infinitely more difficult to not only get underneath sub 1 on corner entry, but complete the pass. I think we saw that a little bit with Nick Silver and Anthony DeBarro and Daniel Eberhardt on that last run. Eberhardt and DeBarro were both behind Silver, but they couldn't find a way to get around him. So whatever you can get on this first lap, I think is going to be crucial, but also might lead to a few instances of contact and maybe a few cars going around again and bringing out another yellow pretty quickly.
We'll have to wait and see what happens as these guys work their way through turns 3 and 4, getting ready to come back to the restart here once again. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens. DeBarro is going to be your race leader. He's got Andrew Farnars on the outside for row number 1. Then we have Dylan Jones and David Washington, row number 2. Then we have Joseph Tyson, Keith Medeiros, row number 3. Pace car pulls to the safety of pit road. And Anthony DeBarro is already on the loud pedal. We're back under green here at Kansas. And he is already pulling away from these drivers. He's got about a 2.5, maybe 3 car length advantage over the number 47 machine. And he's getting away as they head to turn 1. Slots to the bottom of the racetrack, now trying to get as big of a lead over these guys as he can before those guys on fresh tires work their way up through there.
Manages to slide up to the top. Farniars will look down, car spinning, and a yellow flag out again. We'll see here momentarily who that driver was, hearing that it's Daniel Eberhardt who went around and might have hit the inside retaining wall as well, made contact with the 51 of Medeiros, locked it up, and yes, looks like he made a little bit of contact with that inside retaining wall on the back straightaway. So not too much damage, I don't think, for the 90, but still a little bit. Might be something we have to watch here as this race progresses.
Not only that little bit of damage, but he just lost all of his track position. He was running inside the top 10 when that happened, and unfortunately he's going to fall back to at least 21st, because that is how many cars are still on the lead lap here at Kansas. We'll have one more as Dwayne Vincent's going to get the lucky dog and be able to get back on the lead lap. Of course, Dwayne Vincent's still suffering from some pretty significant damage from the early wreck that we had inside the first 10 laps, but that's just another car that Eberhardt's going to have to work with here. Unfortunate circumstances for the number 90 machine. He has been fast pretty much everywhere we've went, and with the exception of that win at Bristol, he's had a little bit of a tough time.
But we mentioned that here as we've got some cars on pit road. DeBarro most notably comes down for service. I think there might have been one other driver that made it down to get pit stops. But, you know, I think that just kind of speaks to everything that we talked about right before we got the green flag there, that the differing pit strategies kind of bunched everybody up and came into a lot of problems there. Meanwhile, a few updates for you while we're under this round of pit stops. DeBarro missed his pit stall, so that's going to slow him down a little bit. And upon further review, we actually have found out that Daniel Eberhardt did not make contact with the inside retaining wall, so that car is clean. I would assume, though, tires are flat spotted on the number 90.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely going to be getting 4 tires. He's already out of his pit stall, as a matter of fact, from getting the tires and getting back out onto the racetrack. So we're going to have to see where he cycles through when it's all said and done. Looks like he did beat a couple of cars off. Maybe he beat some guys that were working on damage on their cars. So he's going to get a couple of those spots back, but he's still going to have his work cut out for him to get back up through the field and try to get back up to where he was prior to that wreck. But how about last week's winner at Talladega, Andrew Farnars? He's found his way to the race lead here, just 44 laps into this race, trying to go 2 in a row maybe for that 47 machine. He's got a lot of speed here so far.
We'll watch and see what happens with the number 47 car, but we're going to take another quick commercial break here on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Introducing a whole new form of racing to the best online racing simulation in the world. This is dirt racing on iRacing.com. Race online at some of America's most legendary dirt tracks, including Eldora and Williams Grove. iRacing is the premier online racing game featuring NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and now World of Outlaws, the leading sanctioning body for dirt racing. iRacing is easy to use and features a centralized ranking system to make sure you have the best experience at any skill level. With a massive inventory of high-precision laser scan tracks and cars with an unmatched dedication to quality and detail, iRacing gives you the most authentic online racing experience available. Thanks to iRacing's dynamic track system, developed specifically for dirt racing, tracks change over the course of a race, just like your favorite dirt track on a Friday or Saturday night. From a slick racing groove all the way up to the cushion, iRacing's dirt tracks deliver non-stop racing action. Partnered with the World of Outlaws, iRacing is your source for the most authentic dirt racing experience available, featuring 4 brand new tracks and 11 new cars, including street stocks, Legends cars, late models, NASCAR trucks, winged and non-winged sprint cars, with much more on the way. Join the Dirt Revolution on iRacing.com and start slinging mud today.
Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series, presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live from Kansas Speedway in Kansas City, Kansas. Looking for our, belief, 5th or 6th restart. The cautions are starting to rack up here, but currently working lap 46, so we'll get the green on lap 47 of 125, and it will be Andrew Farniars, the winner of last week's race at Talladega, who will have the honor of leading the field to green. He'll have teammates in 2nd and 3rd behind him, and Dylan Jones and David Washington. Then Thomas George and Joseph Tice will round out your top 5. So, getting ready for another restart here, getting ready to make things happen. Green flag comes out once again. Farniars gets down to the bottom, makes it go, makes it run, gets a pretty solid jump here, and will get ahead of teammate Jones and Washington, and then they try and go 3 wide into turns 1 and 2. You've got Silver and Tice and Thomas George all right there.
And Thomas George made the move to the outside on the restart. He jumped to the outside of the 5 of Joseph Tice. He made it work, but Nick Silver was able to come out on top. He was on the bottom of the racetrack, had the grip on the inside line for the moment, was able to get ahead. Now you see Keith Madero's trying to slide up. He almost made contact with Thomas George coming off the corner. Had to check up. He's going to give that position to Thomas and fall behind Joseph Tice. So he's going to fall back to at least the 7th position. Now he's fighting with David Comstock as they work through 1 and 2. And Comstock gets into him sideways off turn 2. And a big wreck behind him. There goes the 26 machine around, as well as a couple of others. Another caution here at Kansas.
Caution number 7, I think. I know Callisto was involved, as was Jose Gonzalez, and Jason Jacoby also got caught up in that 6th caution, to be correct and precise here for all you fans watching at home. But you nailed it. You were watching it, Brian. The 51 got loose, got a little bit of contact from Comstock, and then they all had to check up behind him, and it just created the chain reaction.
Yeah, it was just one of those wild wrecks that, once again, the chain reaction, that's been the theme of tonight, unfortunately, and you just see these guys having something happen in front of them, and then it's just so hard to get checked up off the corner. They're going about 180 miles an hour coming off that corner right there, and when something happens in front of them like it did with the number 42 and the number 51, it is incredibly difficult to get checked up and be able to avoid it, and that's what we just saw once again right there. Unfortunately, collects at least 4 or 5 more cars, maybe just a couple of more. Just one of those deals where you just have nowhere to go.
A lot of trouble, a lot of issues, and a lot of drivers coming down pit road here to make things happen, especially towards the back of the field. Medeiros will come in and get those tires fixed. Although I think maybe most surprising is that even though he was the beginning of the incidents that led up to that yellow, he actually didn't get that much damage on his number 51 Joe's Racing Products Ford Fusion. So I think if he gets 4 tires and just gets that cosmetic damage knocked out, he might be able to do something and get back towards the front of the field, because we know he's got a fast machine. He's been able to show speed all night long.
Yeah, absolutely. If he can get the damage repaired and get back up there, he's certainly going to have an opportunity to try to get back to the front and maybe go out there. It doesn't look like he's got a lot of damage on that car right now, so going to just try to get a little bit of damage worked on. It looks like he's actually already left his pit stall, so he might be all right there on that 51 machine, down and away already, trying to get back out onto the racetrack. But once again, we're seeing some of these guys that got caught up in an altered strategy from some other drivers that got stuck in the middle of the pack, having some issues. We've seen that with Dylan Jones. We've now seen that with Keith Medeiros. Anthony DeBarro also had some issues. Daniel Eberhardt. All these guys that were running at the front towards the beginning of this race got off sequence and got into a different strategy from some of these other drivers, and they got stuck in the back, and now we're seeing them all start to have issues slowly but surely.
A little bit of trouble as we have a bit of a revolving door at the front of drivers who have been in control of this race. But while we have a moment, we'll take a moment to remind you that coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you tonight by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download for free, or go get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. As we work through another yellow flag here at Kansas, the carnage has added up pretty quickly, and as I just scroll through our fields here, Jose Gonzalez is now the first name that I see that's run into trouble that is a lap down. So that means everybody from 23rd on back to 39th has been involved in some sort of accident this evening already as we work lap 51. And you do the math there, that's almost half the field that's run into problems. This is a race that's been thinning out here pretty quickly as the laps have progressed in the early stages.
Yeah, absolutely. To see just only 21 drivers on the lead lap right now is pretty insane. Just 50 laps into this 125 lap race. It's kind of crazy to think that many have already had issues, but we've had a couple of pretty big wrecks here trying in the beginning of this race, and unfortunately it has just taken out a lot of front runners. I feel so bad for a couple of these guys that got caught up in the early wreck, like Dwayne Vincent and Mike Kelly, Trevor Rapallo, Nelson Rivera. All these drivers that are typically running at the front have had some pretty significant issues here tonight, and unfortunately have just not been able to rebound from it. It does look like the lights are off on this iRacing Mustang though, so we're going to get back green here in about a mile here or so. We're going to have another restart and see what we can get going.
Get ready here for another restart. See what happens with everything. You've got Farniars, Washington, Jones, and Silver. So each is still 1, 2, 3, and also 5th because Joseph Tice is up there right behind Thomas George, or rather 6th. So I can't count tonight. 4 in the top 6. That sounds like a little bit better math. This is why I was a history and English kid in the school days. But still exciting here, though, at Kansas, and I have a feeling we'll have another entertaining restart as we get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Working through turns 3 and 4 here, getting ready to come to the green flag. Andrew Farnars once again is your race leader. He's got his Aegis teammate David Washington who's trying to rebound from that really rough spell he had when we went to the short tracks. He's in second. Then we have Dylan Jones, your pole sitter. He's rebounded nicely up to third. Pace cars to pit road. Farnar's on the loud pedal, and we're back under green here at Kansas. He dives to the apron as they take the green flag, and it looks like Washington's going to go up by the wall, trying to make sure they get clear so they're single file into the corner, and they are single file. You see Dylan Jones tried to go to the bottom, but Thomas George was there. He takes that inside line, is going to try to get the run off the corner, but can't, and he slots in front of Nick Silver. Now you see Comstock on the bottom trying to make something happen behind these guys. He's battling with Nick Silver, and Joseph Tice brings it all the way to the bottom, cannot get the run up off the corner that he needs, and he's still side by side off four.
Nick Silver had a terrible restart by every standard, dropped about a spot and a half by the time they just got to the start-finish line, and now is running back in the 5th position. So not a good beginning to this green flag run for the 24 car. That being said, now that he's got his car up in the preferred groove on the outside lane, looks like he should be okay and might actually be running down Thomas George a little bit. So might be one of those slow to get going moments, but now that he's got that car going, the Hot Wheels car looks like it's getting quicker with every single lap.
Yeah, absolutely doing a very good job now that he's got that track position, and Comstock was trying to pull up in front of Austin Coop. He almost made contact with the 6 machine, had to go back to the bottom of the racetrack. He's able to get up in front of him now, but he's going to drop from outside of the top 5 to all the way back to 9th, and now he's still side by side with Coop as he had a moment off turn 2 that allows the number 6 car to go to the outside once again, and he's going to have the advantage coming off the corner. And here comes Keith Medeiros, who was just caught up in our most recent caution. He's trying to battle back. This would move him up into the top 10 as he moves ahead of David Comstock to take that 10th position away.
Comstock trapped on the bottom again, so he probably will lose another spot to Jacoby here, maybe even Stefan Marinac too, if he can't get up top. And yes, Marinac will be alongside as they come through 3 and 4, so Comstock might be dropping all the way back to the 13th position when it's all said and done. Looking for more battles here up towards the front of the field. Nothing crazy yet. RSR still with the lead, but Washington beginning to poke around, looking for a way underneath that 47 car, and might be in for a battle for the race lead here in maybe 5 laps or so. We'll just have to see if Washington can get the run he needs to get alongside the number 47.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a good run through 1 and 2, but he got tied up off the corner and had to check up for just a moment. He lost a little bit of ground to the number 47 machine, and he's now going to have to try to build that speed back up and get back up to the back bumper of the number 47 as he's trying to work his way up there on the outside line once again. You just see these guys are so close to the wall. When you're that close, you cannot make any mistakes at all, or it can cost you and others the race. And you see just how close they're getting all the way through the corner as the 47 almost makes contact as well. Andrew Farnar's just getting so very close that actually allowed for Washington to close back in just a little bit. He gained about a half a car length in the middle of 3 and 4, and he is closing again as they head to turn 1.
Starting to make the gap back up is Washington, and even though he's had a rough stretch of races here within the past month, he got to this position as points leader of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series by running extremely well in the opening few races of the season at Las Vegas, Atlanta, places like that are 1.5 mile tracks, much like this Kansas Speedway is. So I think in some sense we can't be totally surprised to see Washington back up front now that we're back at a 1.5 mile track.
Oh, absolutely not. It is no surprise to me at all that he's back here. This is where he has dominated the most part of this beginning of the season. It was on these 1.5 mile tracks. He was just so fast at pretty much every track we went to, and he had speed at the short tracks as well. He just got caught up in some things that he couldn't control, and unfortunately just spelled for, like you said, a pretty rough month for that number 98 team. But he is back, and he's doing exactly what he came here to do, and that is battle for the race lead. He's closed that gap down to less than a half a car length. He's right on the back bumper of Andrew Farnars as they work through 1 and 2. He's trying to search for a groove about a half a lane down from where they're running, but that is just not going to give him the speed he needs to come off the corner and get to the inside or the outside of the number 47 machine. He's going to have to try to find a way to get a little bit more speed off the corner if he's going to make it happen.
Makes it really, really tough to get around here and get past someone, especially once you get 10 to 15 laps into a run, as we're seeing. Also watching them fan out back at about 10th. I see that little pack of Austin Coop, Keith Medeiros, Daniel Eberhardt, all going just about every which way. They're on the front straightaway trying to find a little bit of racing room, but Back at the front, it's still the same problem for Washington. He can get to Farniar's rear bumper, but just can't quite get the run to get alongside him and make it a battle for the race lead.
Yeah, absolutely, but we do have a battle back around the 8th position. Keith Medeiros looks to the inside of Anthony DeBarro as they head to turn 1. He's going to try to make that inside line work, something we have not seen much happen. He tries to slide up in front of DeBarro. He can't. He had to check up, and he's going to have to get in line behind him. Has to cut off Austin Coop as they go down the back straightaway, trying to protect that outside line. He tried to make the slide job work, and he almost was able to pull it off, but just did not have enough momentum to clear the 96 machine and pull up in front of him. You see here again, though, he gets a great run off the corner, goes to the inside again of the number 96 machine. He's going to try to do it again here down in 1 as he looks to the inside and goes to the bottom of the racetrack. He's going to try the same move once again, tries to slide up in front of the 96, but once again can't make it happen. They're still side by side off 2.
I'm noticing, though, that the 51 is getting really, really good runs out of turn 4, especially when compared to the 96 car. So might have a chance here. They make contact, and into the wall goes Anthony DeBarro. Makes contact with Keith Medeiros. So back goes DeBarro a few spots. Austin Coop gets around. I see Jacoby around the number 96, and now it might be Stefan Marinac who can clear DeBarro as well. So tight racing in the middle of the pack there, leading to contact, and you have to wonder how will that affect the 96 as we go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got some pretty significant damage to the right side of the number 96 machine. It's going to be very interesting, as you mentioned, to see how much that affects the handling and the aerodynamics of that car as we get rolling here. He's fallen all the way back to the 11th position now behind Jason Jacoby, and it's just trying to hang on to this one. As you see, he's blocking the number 25 machine of Stefan Marinac, not wanting to give up the outside line at all. He went all the way up to the outside wall down the front stretch trying to protect that line and keep Stefan Marinac from making the move.
While they race towards the back of this field, we have hit the halfway point, so it's time now to take our iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Car Store, USAC, and more. Working lap 67 of 125 tonight, it's Andrew Farniar's that currently leads the field. David Washington running in the second spot at the moment. Dylan Jones, teammate to the front 2, currently sits in 3rd. Then Thomas George holds the 4th spot, a season's best run for him. And Nick Silver currently sitting in the 5th spot. Another strong runner and has found some speed here in the middle part of this first third of the season. Joseph Tice, another Aegis driver, currently sits in the 6th spot. Then you've got Keith Medeiros, Daniel Eberhardt, Jason Jacoby, and Austin Coop to round out your top 10.
Stefan Marinac currently sits in that 11th position. He took that from Anthony DeBarro just a couple of laps ago. DeBarro has slotted back to 12th. And then we have Brandon Bowie in 13th. David Comstock is in 14th. Then Lionel Callisto is 15th. 16th goes to Bruce Ackerman. Steve Gottschalk is 17th. Shane Ewing is 18th. Ross Cato 19th. And Douglas Wyatt rounds out the top 20.
21st is Dwayne Vincent's spot. Last car here on the lead lap. John Abbott 1 lap down in 22nd. Then it's Jug Roth 23rd. Carl Shedd 24th. AJ Browning currently in the 25th spot. Mike Kelly runs 26th. 27th belongs to the 27 of Ashton Crowder. Then Jose Gonzalez, Sean Boundy, and Gabe Wood to round out your top 30.
Braden Whittaker is in the 31st position. Then Stephanie Lessentine is 32nd. Scott Simley goes to 33rd. Trevor Rapallo is 34th. Nelson Rivera 35th. Sean Casto 36th. Corbin Hemstreet 37th. Eric Arnold is 38th. And rounding out this 39-car field here tonight, Randy Yoakum will finish in the 39th position here tonight. This concludes your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. And James, with the dirt content that we have now, it's definitely worth your time to do it. However, we got to get back to the racing here. We had a change for the lead while we were doing our Midway Race Break, as we have David Washington in the race lead.
trouble there, though, as they come out of turn 4. Dylan Jones got the wall on corner exit and is significantly slower. Can't tell if that car is actually hurting or if he's been able to get it back up to speed. Looks like he's okay, though, but lost a ton of track position there as he bounced off the wall and is going to drop a few spots in that ordeal. Meanwhile, you are correct. David Washington did get to the race lead around Andrew Farniar's as we took the midway race break. But again, people running into the wall and causing problems for themselves. As these tires get old, it makes it more difficult to judge where exactly you need to let off the throttle and get back on the throttle to make sure you don't hit the wall on corner entry and exit.
Well, and that's just it. This car gets really tight on the long runs here, and now that we're finally beginning to establish a long green flag run, you're going to see these guys really struggling with the handling on corner exit, and like you mentioned, not getting into the gas too soon and getting yourself into trouble and hitting the outside wall, and that's about what we saw with Dylan Jones. It did look like he got a little sideways off the corner, which is a little bit surprising to me because I ran this car earlier in the week, and it was not very loose. It looks like maybe he got back in the gas way too soon, and it kicked the rear end sideways and got him out of control off the corner. But for the most part, you're going to see these guys really fighting a tight issue off the corner, and that's going to be the biggest issue the longer this run goes here.
And the easiest way to get out of all of that problem and all of that trouble is to give yourself a little bit more breathing room up at the front of the field, which is exactly what David Washington has done. Now, up in front of his teammate Farniar's here as they come across the line by half a second. So, Washington now with room to run, and when you've got that space, and even for Farniar's too, because it's another half second back to Thomas George. If you've got that space up in the front of the field, you don't necessarily feel the pressure that you do if you're, say, maybe a Joseph Tice or Keith Medeiros, where you're racing side by side and you have to deal with judging where the other cars are going to let off the throttle in addition to where you need to get off the throttle. It makes it a little bit simpler if you've got that space to run and the space to execute the way you need to.
Oh, absolutely. And the clean air that we see David Washington have right now also plays a big factor into that, because he doesn't have anybody messing up the air for him and taking away some of that clean air that he's got. He's able to just go out there and do pretty much whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to worry about it. It's been a pretty smooth sailing deal for him since he took the lead a handful of laps ago, and he's pulled out to about a second lead here, almost a second lead over Andrew Farnars, and then it's 1.2 back to Thomas George. And it looks like Thomas may have gained a little bit right there, but still he's got a long ways to go. 1.1 is the gap from him to the race leader. But David Washington doing what we expected him to do. He's got to the lead in the second half of this race, and he's back in his prime here on the mile-and-a-half tracks.
Meanwhile, a little miscalculation from Joseph Tice a little bit further back in the field. They were approaching the lap car of Douglas Wyatt, and he went down on the almost to the apron in turn 1 to try and get around the lap car, but they didn't quite catch the lap car as early as they thought. So now Wyatt ends up being the roadblock that Medeiros loved to see, and he was able to jump around Joseph Tice, as did Daniel Eberhardt and Jason Jacoby, and now Tice slides back from the 5th spot to the 8th position, all in the span of maybe a quarter of a lap.
Yeah, very scary moment for some of those drivers, but how about Keith Medeiros making his way back up through? He was caught up in a wreck just about maybe 30 laps ago and was outside of the top 15. He's back up to 5th right now, and it looks like he's still got a tremendous amount of speed. He actually just cut about 2/10 off the race leader, David Washington, that last time by. So very interested to see if he can get ahead of some of these guys that are ahead of him with Nick Silver and Thomas George and Andrew Farnars. If he can get ahead of those 3 drivers, it'd be very interesting to see if he can actually chase down David Washington and challenge him for the race lead. He's got a tremendous amount of speed. I see he's carrying so much more speed through the middle of the corner right now. He was about 5 miles an hour faster than Nick Silver in the middle of 3 and 4 right there, just carrying so much more momentum compared to these guys right now.
Medeiros definitely looking like one of the fastest cars on track at the moment, but we'll have to wait a few laps and see if he can catch up to Nick Silver and see if he can create a battle for the 4th spot. So, while Medeiros makes his charge, we will go side by side and take another commercial break. You are watching the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Well, we were going to take a commercial break, and then we run into trouble here. A yellow flag comes out right as we get into the thick of our commercial break, and we're still trying to figure out who is the responsible party for this. But yellow flag here to shake things up after a long green flag run, Brian.
Yep, and that was the 6 car of Austin Coop coming off turn 4. He was trying to follow Dylan Jones. He got into the outside wall and he spun it out and was unable to keep the car straight, and that brought out caution here once again at Kansas. Our longest green flag run of the night unfortunately has come to an end here, and I imagine, James, that we are going to see everybody come to pit road. I don't think you'll see anybody try for 2 tires this time. It's going to be 4 tires and fuel, and I do believe these guys are inside their fuel window at this point, so there will not be any concerns about not making it to the end on fuel. They will be able to go that far. It's just a matter of if the tires are going to hold up at this point.
42 or 3 laps by my count here. So yes, we're getting close to it. And everybody does come down pit road. Nobody trying to play pit game here. 43 laps to go as it stands. And Washington leads his teammates and a few of his competitors down pit road as well. We'll watch and see what happens. But this could be interesting because you're right, Macklin. This could be the much fabled money stop of tonight's event.
Yeah, absolutely, and it looks like everybody is going to make it into their boxes cleanly, at least from what I can see. David Washington got into his pit box almost perfectly, and he's already got the left sides up on that car trying to get off of pit road here as quickly as possible to see if he can't win that race off pit road. Right now, it looks like he's going to pretty easily. No contest for David Washington. He's going to win the battle off pit road. Then it's Andrew Farnars coming out in second, then Thomas George, Keith Medeiros, and it looks like Daniel Eberhardt will come out in that 5th position. And we have Joseph Tyson, Jason Jacoby right behind them as well. So not really a big shakeup at the front. Looks like they came out pretty much the exact same way they went in. Very good deal for those guys at the front.
So now that we've got our pit stop sorted and we'll have some yellow flag laps, we'll go ahead and take our commercial break at this time. So you're watching the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsors. Welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series here on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Live from, I guess, Dorothy and Toto's backyard, Kansas Speedway here in Kansas City, on the other side of the border in Kansas proper. Restart coming on lap 86 here. David Washington will be the point man when they come back around and take the green once more. Then it will be teammate Andrew Farnars, winner of last week's event at Talladega. Then Thomas George, Keith Medeiros, and Daniel Eberhardt, your top 5 when they go back green, Brian Macklin.
Yeah, absolutely, and everybody on 4 tires, and It's hard to guess whether or not that was the last pit stop for these drivers, but it very well could have been. They don't have to come back for fuel. If this thing stays green, we don't expect them to have to come back to pit road at all. And if we do have a couple of cautions, we might start seeing some pit strategy here. Gonna have to wait and see as we're getting ready to go back green. Pace car pulls to the safety of pit road. David Washington's your control car, and he's already taken control. He's down and away. We're back under green here at the Kansas Motor Speedway, and he's got a big advantage over Andrew Farnars as they head to turn 1. Thomas George trying to protect the bottom. He's trying to block Daniel Eberhardt as they get down to the middle of the corner. Eberhardt trying to fight, and you see David Washington goes high already in the middle of 1 and 2, and that opens the door for a race with the lead. Looks like Farnars is going to decide to get in line. He had the opportunity to make that move, but he decided to get in line behind his teammate.
Jason Jacoby might be the man who ends up in trouble. He's stuck down to the bottom and has no hole to jump into, but everybody up in the top 5 got up to the top side of the racetrack very, very quickly. So meanwhile, a little bit more battles here towards the back of the field, trying to figure out who's going to be able to make that charge towards the front of the field. You see Keith Medeiros there running tight up against the wall, as is Eberhardt and George and Farnars and Washington. So everybody up there really, really quickly. Might take a really, really special car to try and get something done, but it might be Eberhardt that makes a move underneath Thomas George, looking for the 3rd position as they come across the front stretch.
He's trying to take that position away from Thomas George. He realizes that it's go time. He goes to the bottom of the racetrack, but just cannot find the grip that he needs. He's going to lose that battle to Thomas George. He's going to have to stay in that 4th position. Slams in the door on Keith Medeiros as they come off the corner. Keith wanted to try to look to the inside. He decided against it as he's going to stay on the back bumper of that Aegis car, number 90, Daniel Eberhardt, as they come off turn 4, trying to make that move once again, but just cannot get the run that he needs to get below that number 90 machine. So he's going to have to stay in 5th for the moment, but that was a huge momentum loss for that number 90 car. He lost about 4 car lengths to Thomas George when he couldn't get off the corner the way he wanted to, and fell all the way back to the 51 machine. Now he's going to have to work his butt off to get back up there and try to challenge him again.
And there is your first "it's go time, that means it's time to go" moment of the evening, brought to you by our dear friend Mr. Andy Kessler. So keep an eye out for a little bit more of that, because you're right, Macklin. It's definitely time to get moving, and I think Eberhardt knows it. He's trying to find a way underneath Thomas George, but it just isn't quite working at the moment.
Yeah, it just has not been a night where the bottom can work at all. We've seen these guys just go to the outside line, and unless the guy in front of them makes a mistake and hits the wall, you really don't see a lot of action happening where they can go to the bottom of the racetrack and make it work. And that has been true here with this battle between Thomas George and Daniel Eberhardt. Just not been able to do anything between these two. And you see Eberhardt, he has closed that gap back down. He's right back on the back bumper of Thomas George. It's going to be interesting to see if he tries to go to the bottom once again once he gets close enough to make that move. He's about a car length and a half off of him right now as they come off turn 2.
Really, really close battle there, but not quite anything yet. Though I think maybe the most important thing to note is that David Washington has not been able to get away from Andrew Farnars the same way he did on that last green flag run. The 47 car has done a much better job of staying with the 98, at least in the first few laps of this green flag run, and I wonder how that might change things if we get down to maybe 10, 15 laps to go, and that gap is still the same between the two teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. They have not really gotten away from each other, but we saw on that last long green flag run that David Washington, over the long run, was able to pull away from Andrew Farnars and actually had about a second advantage of them right when that caution came out. So you have to believe if this thing goes green for a little while, you're going to see that number 98 machine pull away once again. He just seems like he knows how to get it done on the long run. Pretty much any track we go to, he's got that longevity that you need in order to be able to go up there and take the race lead and ultimately go get the victory the way we've seen him do a handful of times this year. He knows what he's doing when it comes to that. It's incredible.
Other thing I'm noticing here up towards the front of the field, outside of Eberhardt trying to find every which way around Thomas George, is that it's allowing Keith Medeiros to get back into this battle, and it might be a 3-car battle for the 3rd position here before too long. I can't tell if Medeiros has got the same kind of long run speed with this set of tires that he did with the previous set of Goodyears on that number 51 car, but the battle ahead of him is definitely helping him in his case to get back towards the front of his field.
Yeah, absolutely. Sitting in that 5th position right now, Keith Medeiros is watching these guys in front of him and hoping that he can get just a little bit closer so that he can join them. You see Eberhardt still has not been able to do anything with Thomas George. He's been trying to find a way to get around him, but just has not had the speed that he has needed to make any moves on him at this point. And they're just a few car lengths off the race leaders, so that he's trying to get around Thomas Shore so that he can try to go up there and join those guys at the front trying to race for the race lead. But how about Thomas George? And hopefully we're not going to snake bite him here. He's having a solid run in what has been a very difficult season for him. Unfortunately, it seems like every time he's having a good race like he is right here, something happens. I'm really hoping that I didn't just curse him, because I'd like to see him get a good run, and he's up there in the top 5 right now.
We'll see if the commentator's curse lives one more time. I know we've been guilty of it a few times this season already, so certainly would not wish that on any driver in this Full Throttle Cup Series field. But you are right. Thomas has had a lot of really bad luck, and I think especially in the last 3 to 4 races, much better cars than he had in the opening few races of this season. Looks like his season's beginning to come together, and I can imagine that a result like this would be nothing short of huge for his confidence level, because he's had a top 5 car all evening. This is not any sort of fluky pit strategy or anything crazy. George had a fast car, started in the 7th spot, has just driven his way up towards the front of this field and stayed there all race long.
And Eberhard just had a moment off turn 4. He kicked that car sideways and somehow hung on to it. It looked like he was racing on dirt when he came off turn 4 right there, the way that car was sideways, and amazingly hangs on to it and was able to hold off Keith Medeiros and Joseph Tice. Medeiros made that move for the bottom of the racetrack, but just couldn't do it. And now you see Tice going to the bottom of the racetrack trying to clear Medeiros, and it looks like he's going to get the job done. No, he's not. He puts Medeiros in the wall, and Medeiros goes down through the grass. Not sure if he's going to be able to get the car straight. He's down in the grass just trying to hang on, coming back up onto the track. Now he's going to take it to pit road and slow it down on the inside. There should not be a caution here for the number 51 machine. I believe we're going to stay green here at Kansas.
Going to be close. I saw he looped it around as he got back on the racing surface on the other side of the grass into turns 1 and 2. But there goes a very, very good night for Keith Medeiros, up in tire smoke here towards the end of this race, working lap 100 now, 25 laps to go, and Medeiros will in all likelihood not get the finish that his performance is warranted for this evening, because he's been up near the front of this field just like George all race long.
Yeah, and he had a fast car, got to lead a handful of laps when he did take a little bit of his tire strategy to get there, and unfortunately, as you just said, it's not going to be the night he was looking for. It looks like he has went ahead and taken that 51 machine behind the wall and will unfortunately not finish tonight's race here at Kansas. An absolutely incredible run, just comes up a little bit short for that 51 team, unfortunately for those guys. However, back at the front, David Washington trying to hold off his teammate Andrew Farnars. They still are only about a car length separated between these two right now, as a 47 machine trying to stay as close to the back bumper of David Washington. You've got to wonder, James, maybe he learned something from Dave on that last long green flag run, realized he was overdriving the car and maybe burned his stuff up a little too quickly. He might be just trying to take his time here so that he can keep up with the number 98 machine the longer this run goes.
Something like that, potentially. We'll see, though. Gap has increased a little bit between that 98 and 47. I think lap traffic there, the number 43 of Doug Roth might have played a little bit into that. That might have helped Washington just a little bit as I look at this here. Though, maybe the most interesting thing is that Washington's actually coming off of that wall on corner exit in particular. It comes down about half a lane to a lane more than just about anybody else that I've seen in this field. So wondering if the shallow exit off the corners might be part of the reason why he's up here at the race lead. Maybe he's figured out something.
Well, he's definitely figured out something, as he is starting to pull away from the number 47 machine now. And it's also keeping his car clean. When he comes off the corner shallow like that and he gives himself a little bit of room, there's less likeliness of him actually making contact with the wall. And you don't see any scratches on that right side of that car. He's done an incredible job keeping that car clean. He had to start a little bit further back than I think he would have liked, starting in the 8th position. And he was very patient and methodical, and it has paid off very well for him as he's leading this race as we approach the 20 lap to go mark here. And he's starting to pull away. He's now opened that gap up over his teammate Andrew Farnars to about 5 car lengths. Just seems to be getting further and further away the longer this run goes.
We might have hit that sort of breaking point for the 47 where might not necessarily have the long run speed that Washington's got. Meanwhile, 2 spots behind them, Daniel Eberhardt has rallied from the little incident a few laps ago that cost him that space and that gap to Thomas George, and is now making that up quickly. It's down now to only 0.4 of a second, so the 90 car is coming for the 3rd spot. We might have that battle back on here in maybe 5 or 6 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. He's trying to close the gap on Thomas George once again, and he has no pressure from behind. These guys have pulled out to about a 2-second advantage over everybody else this top 4 has. You have to go back about 3 seconds to find Nick Silver. He's about 3 seconds behind the race leader right now. So this top 4, they have driven away from everybody, and it looks like Thomas George has found a little bit of something too, as he's beginning to close that gap. It was about 9/10 just maybe 3 laps ago, and it's down to 7.5 right now. So he's slowly starting to find some speed and work his way to the front. We'll have to see what happens here at the line, see if he makes up any time, and he does. He gains another 0.5 tenth, almost a full tenth that time actually. So maybe that number 29 machine's found something here. He's gaining on these guys as we get closer to the end.
I don't think it's George by himself. I think Washington might have slowed up here in these last few laps. Couldn't really see any issues on the 98 car, but the gap has closed to Farniar's too. That's now down to about 25/100ths of a second. So everybody's starting to make things happen, and then trouble. Car around. It's Daniel Eberhardt into the wall. Spins from the 4th position. Caution flag is out. Replay up for you momentarily, but it looks like he just lost it and lost the rear end of that car coming out of turn 4 and ended up right into the outside wall here on the front straightaway.
Yeah, that was a big hit for the number 90 machine. He's got heavy damage to both sides of that car. He hit the turn 4 wall with the right side, then looped it around and hit it on the driver's side. So unfortunately, some pretty heavy damage for the number 90 machine. I don't know that you're going to see him get back out there and be competitive at this point, as it looks like he's sitting on pit road trying to get some damage fixed. But another long green flag run gets broke up by a caution right here at the end, and now we don't have time for a long green flag run. We're going to go back green with right around 10 laps to go, maybe 11 or 12, depending on how quickly they get the track cleaned up here for these guys. But we are going to see one more pit stop out of these race leaders. Now we might get a chance to see some 2-tire takers and see if they mix this thing up at the front and go up there and try to steal this thing away from the Aegis drivers.
It all depends on whether or not we get one clean run from here to the end under green, or whether or not the end of this race is marred by cautions. But it's a gamble that you have to make on pit road as a driver with your spotter and crew chief in your team. But this is where you win races. This is where you lose races. It's critical decisions and execution that matters here, as David Washington leads them on to pit road for what could well be the last round of green flag pit stops.
Yeah, and we're waiting for all these drivers to come to the attention of their pit crews. Farnars is going to be the first one to hit his pit stall. Looks like he's going to get a pretty clean stop in here. Already looking for at least 2 right side tires. Going to have to wait and see if he goes for the left sides as well. It looks like he indeed will go for all 4 tires on that number 47 machine. Now waiting to see if we have anybody else. It looks like David Washington, our race leader, took just 2 tires and is going to win the battle off pit road. Thomas George as well took 2 tires, and it looks like Joseph Tyson might have as well. So we have a couple of 2-tire takers, not the ones I was expecting to take 2 tires, but we had a couple of guys that are going to go ahead and take that chance. Now we have to wait and see if it pays off for them.
How interesting is that it's the drivers at the front of the field that took the 2 tires, and Andrew Farniars is the first one that took the 4, and he was in second. So I wonder how that's going to shake things out when you've got Farniars and Nick Silver. Jason Jacoby might have taken 2. I can't quite tell. You've got some drivers back there. Looks like, though, most of those guys took 4, I think. So I think you're watching Farniars, Silver, and company as your sort of leaders within the field of the drivers that took 4 tires. And then you've got the trio of Tice, George, and Washington that took 2. And they will lead this field to the green flag when we get it here in a few laps.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be wild. I figured we might see some guys take 2 tires on that pit stop. I did not at all expect it to be your race leader. and Thomas George and Joseph Tice. I figured if it was going to be anybody going for 2 tires, it would have been somebody on the back half of the top 10, a Jason Jacoby or a Brandon Bowie or an Anthony DeBarro. Some of these guys that have speed in the car but just haven't had the track position all night, they were the ones I was expecting to go for that 2-tire call, not your race leader. So this is going to be very interesting. This puts David Washington in a very vulnerable spot. He does have a couple of guys between him and his teammate Andrew Farnars on 4 tires. However, if he doesn't get up to speed in a hurry and get to the outside line, he's going to have his hands full because those guys on 4 fresh tires, they are going to be charging in a hurry on this restart.
I think we've seen here over the course of the first 10 races that David Washington has consistently been one of the best drivers, if not the absolute best drivers in this field when it comes to getting a good restart from the race lead. He's been very consistent and clean on all of his, and I imagine that if you're the 98, that's what you're banking on, is your ability to get going quickly from the front better than anyone else, and then just driving away once you have the track position and the outside line and control of the racing crew off to victory lane. But it all is going to play out here right in front of us because the lights should be off on the pace car here, and we should get the green flag next time by.
I tell you, I'm very interested to see what happens with the 47 and the 1 and these guys that are on 4 fresh tires. Looks like Nick Silver is also one of those guys on 4 fresh tires. And truthfully, I feel like Nick Silver might be in the catbird seat here because he's going to have the bottom on the restart, which means he can go to the bottom, try to get ahead of some of these guys in the middle of 1 and 2. If he can get a good run through the middle of that first corner, get to the outside line, and get ahead of the 47 of Andrew Farnars, I feel like he might have the best opportunity to go up there and challenge these guys for the race lead and maybe try to steal this thing away from them.
Farnars and Silver might be the most interesting cases in this field. They have the best tires and track position combo, you would think. But they've got to get around the 3 drivers and 4 drivers in front of them to make it happen. Restart to come on lap 113 of 125. So getting down to it here. Might have our last restart, might not. We've seen cautions mar this race throughout. But time to settle the score here at Kansas. We get going here, and couldn't tell if Thomas George might have jumped a little bit early or late, but he had to slow up. I think he tried to go early, and that gives Washington all the space he needs, and Farnars is going to try and go underneath him and go get that 3rd position. Can he clear George as they go through 1 and 2? And is that the mistake that they need as Tice gets loose out of the corner, and Farnars is going to be able to go to the bottom? And is that the last thing you wanted to see if you were David Washington? I have to believe so, because here come the drivers with 4 tires down to the bottom, and the track position should be theirs as they come out of 4.
3 wide off turn 4. You've got Nick Silver and Andrew Farnars on 4 fresh tires trying to work their way through the field. Nick Silver's got the bottom of the racetrack, and he's going to get ahead of Farnars. Then we have one on the wall. Thomas George goes around. Jason Jacoby looks like a handful of others behind them as well. And we're back under caution here at Kansas.
Incredibly hard racing, and that all started when Farnars got into George, and George just smacked the wall, had nowhere to go. Jacoby was in there, and then they just all stacked up behind them, trying to catch and see who else was involved in this. Anthony DeBarro got damaged. Dylan Jones looks like he got a little piece of it. Just everybody wrecked in the back of this field. It's almost like we're seeing the big one from Talladega come visit us a week later here in the Heartland.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was another wreck behind all this. I saw Austin Coop got a pretty big hit. Looks like Stefan Marinak might have got a piece. Bruce Ackerman got a piece. So there was a couple of different things going on here. There was 2 separate wrecks at the same time. Looks like the Brandon Bowie machine got involved. Looks like John Abbott got collected. So as you mentioned, the big one here at Kansas, as much as you want to say Talladega or Daytona, it was the big one here at Kansas that collects at least a half dozen, maybe more, of our remaining cars here tonight.
Just a big, big, big mess of cars, and I think all we can do at this point is just wait and see who cycles around and is able to come across the start-finish line with something that's at least somewhat drivable. I think we just saw about 7 or 8 cars go a lap down there, if you want any indication as to how many drivers got caught up in this. And as I just glance through this field, it's Washington, Tice, Silver, Farniars that I think have clean cars, and it looks like just about everybody behind the 47 has some form of damage and got caught up in either that most recent wreck or one of the wrecks that happened earlier this evening.
Well, and to put it into perspective is how many cars have been tore up here tonight. As we get to 10 laps to go here at this race, there's only 12 cars remaining on the lead lap. And I believe we're going to see that go at least one more down because Dylan Jones is heavily smoking as he comes to pit road. And I imagine he's probably not going to be able to get back out there. So that means at the very most we'll have 11. Looks like we will have the Lucky Dog car that will get his lap back as well. So it looks like we'll stay at 12. But still, when we had a 39 car field, to be down to just 12 on the lead lap at the end of this thing, that tells you just how insane this race has been and how many big wrecks we've had here tonight. There has been several really, really big wrecks here tonight that have taken out a lot of our front runners.
We've had a lot of front runners taken out, and I guess since we are in Kansas, it also makes a little bit of sense to throw in a basketball reference here because it does apply. We have a Final Four of sorts at the front of this field of clean cars that have been able to stay out of trouble. And I imagine when we go back to green, it will be Washington, Tice, Silver, and Farniars that will battle it out for the race victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very interested to see what happens with Nick Silver because he's going to have the inside line on this restart. He's starting in third. He's going to be right behind David Washington. So if he can time the restart, get on the back bumper of that number 98 machine and get clear of Joseph Tice down in 1 and 2, I think Nick Silver's got a pretty big opportunity to break that winless streak here. As you mentioned, the last time he went to victory lane in the Full Throttle Cup Series on Monday nights was last year at Indianapolis. So you got to believe that Hot Wheels car is very hungry for another victory, and I truly believe he's in one of the best positions that he could possibly be in to go up there and get that win.
It's about as good as it gets, I think, if you're the 24 car, so long as everyone gets a good restart in front of you, because you are the first car in this field that has 2 tires. But you could also maybe say the same thing for Farniars if he can get going, because he's already in the outside lane. And all he really has to do is just keep that car wound up in the top lane and get right behind the rear bumper of the 5. And there may be the chance that he can clear the 24 by the time they get to turn 2, maybe get underneath the 5 going down the back straightaway, and maybe pull the slide job up on Tice as they go into turns 2 and 3, and then you're just running down Washington. I get the sense that if you're Farniars, that's probably your best case scenario.
So I think what we have figured out here is that everybody just needs to stay tuned because this is going to be an absolutely insane restart and you don't want to miss it. We have just at least one more. We might have an opportunity at 2 more restarts depending on if we have a quick caution, but hopefully this is going to be our final restart of the night. And it's going to be a wild one because you've got David Washington and Joseph Tice on those 2 tires, and then you've got the hard-charging Nick Silver and Andrew Farnars on 4 tires. Farnars looking for his 2nd win in a row. He won last week at Talladega. He wants to try to go back-to-back and get another victory here tonight as well. So we're going to have to wait and see. Lights are off on the Mustang pace car here, so we're going to go back green here in about a lap. It's going to be a very wild restart for sure.
Lap 119, when they get the green, that means if they can come back around and complete that, and another lap will be within the 5 lap to go range, and that will put us in the point of no return. Though, unlike the Kansas song, just spelled with the N and not the K in front. Green flag, though, coming here. Here comes Washington. They get on the gas. Everybody gets a decent restart, maybe save for Silver. Didn't quite get away the way he wanted to. Washington got a very, very good run of things, though, and is going to be able to get down to the bottom quickly. Can he get up top fast enough, or will Tice be able to get the run? Tice is up there on the top side, has a little bit of speed. Here he comes, Joseph Tice alongside Washington, who couldn't quite get back up to the top side. Might be a battle for the lead as they come on turn 4. Here comes the number 5 car of Joseph Tice up to the front of the lead. Washington might be paying for the 2 tires now. Back in a 3-wide battle here on lap 120.
Nick Silver on the bottom of the racetrack trying to find some grip down there. Farnars on the outside line. Farnars is going to have the advantage as they come off turn 2. Washington's the big loser here as he falls back to 4th, trying to fight off Nick Silver and try to take that position back. But now the race is on for the race lead as Farnars is going to try to battle Joseph Tice for the race lead as they come to the stripe this time by 5 laps to go at Kansas.
5 laps to go, and Farniars is the first of the drivers, is on 4 tires. So it is 4 tires versus 2 tires in track position in the 5 car. Silver and Washington can't get unglued from door-to-door battles. Back for the 3rd spot. That might knock them out, but here goes Farniars. Takes his first look underneath Tice. Can't quite make it stick. He'll have a few more opportunities to make it happen, but gonna need to happen quick. 47's running out of time to get around Tice.
The 2 tires so far are working for Joseph Tice, and they've worked for David Washington here now that he's gotten in line. He was able to hold off Nick Silver and hold on to that 3rd position. Now he's trying to close back in on your 2 front runners, but right now Joseph Tice is the man on a mission. He's trying to get this victory here tonight at Kansas, and Farnars is trying to take it away from him. 3 Aegis drivers at the front of the field. Which one's going to get the victory? Or can Nick Silver sneak up there and get it? And how about Steve Gottschalk sitting back there in 5th? He's right behind all these guys, waiting for something to happen so he can try to take an opportunity at it as well.
Oh, here comes Silver, tried to get to the outside of Washington, but couldn't make it happen. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, it's a little bit of a gap now that's come between Tice and Farniars. Not much in it, though, and I think especially when you consider that Tice is not getting off turn 2 well, if Farniars is going to have a chance at this race win, he's going to get a run off turn 2 down the max straightaway and get around the 5 car, but they'll come to the line here. 2 laps to go when they hit the stripe.
Farnars looks to the outside, seeing if he can get his nose to the right rear of that number 5 machine. He's not going to be able to do it. He backs up by about half a car length, trying to see if he can get a big run through the middle of the corner right here. And as you mentioned, once again, Tice just does not get a good run up off the corner. Farnars closes the door, or closes to the back bumper of the 5 car. They head to turns 3 and 4. He's going to try it once again. Closes right on the back bumper of Tice, but just can't get the run he needs. Coming to the white flag here.
White flag here when they come across the stripe. 1 more lap to go. Farniars down to the bottom. Washington's found speed again. It is right on the rear bumper of the 47. They go to turn 1, though. It's still Joseph Tice with the race lead.
Off turn 2 for the final time. Farnars looking for that big run off the corner once again. He's got the run this time. He's going to look to the inside as they head to 3 and 4 side by side for the lead as they head to the final corners.
Here they come through 3 and 4. 1 more shot for Farniars, but he might have shot himself when they came into turn 3. Can't quite get the run. Gonna try and get to the bottom. Won't be able to get there, though. Joseph Tice will be able to grab the win, and it's another Aegis victory, but a new name this time. Joseph Tice gets his first victory of 2017 here at Kansas.
What an absolutely incredible finish. That one did not disappoint at all. And what a victory for Joseph Tice. He needed that victory, and he has got it here. And for Aegis Motorsports, they get yet another victory here in the Full Throttle Cup Series. These guys have been so dominant this season for these guys. And how about Joseph getting his first win on the season? Big moment for those guys. He's got himself a lock in the playoffs now as long as he can stay in the top 30 in points.
So it's now Washington, Farniars, Dylan Jones, and Joseph Tice that have made it to victory lane. And you can see it's a big moment for the Aegis drivers. They all come out on the front stretch in support of the driver of the number 5. We'll take a quick commercial break here and then come back to give you the full field rundown and talk to our top 3 finishers. You are watching coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
I actually, really enjoy dirt racing. Feels good to get in the car, and we have, great cars and engines and things at KKR, so it's nice to drive a fast sprint car.
Couple of separate lines developing, 3 wide action on a turn 2. Craig Kinzer, Casey Kane, and Garrett Pittman going at it.
I think the differences between, NASCAR and the sprint races on dirt is just a much different mindset. The way you drive your cars, the setup, the feel you're looking for. I think one of the hardest things to tell as a fan is when you're watching a race, whether it's a NASCAR race, a dirt race, is just what's really going on in the cars. With iRacing, you can get the way that the track's changing, which they've done a great job in how the track changes throughout the night or throughout the race, just to try to capture it and let the fans play it and realize, like, man, there's actually a lot going on, and you can't always see that when you watch a race. So I think it's pretty neat. It's, enjoyable for me, but at the end of the day, it's actually much of a simulation, and there's a lot of ways that you can learn from that. And, early on, it was neat to look at the Cup tracks that I was going to, places that I had never been. So I think it kind of gives you a head start leading into a weekend. It's pretty real life, and that's pretty neat.
Welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking here on LSRTV. We're round 11 of our 2017 season is in the books, and Joseph Tice becomes another driver for Aegis Motorsports to get the victory. And at this point, we'll take a moment to run you through the full field rundown, which tonight is brought to you by RealSimRacing.com. Joseph Tice gets the job done, gets his first victory of 2017, and then it was teammates Andrew Farniars and David Washington that finished second and third. Nick Silver put together another strong run after a strong month or so of racing, finished fourth when it was all said and done, and Steve Gottschalk gets a season's best fifth place car in his number 91 Nerf machine. Lionel Callisto finished sixth, and then it was Jason Jacoby seventh, Douglas Wyatt eighth, Shane Ewing ninth, and Ross Cato to round out your top 10.
And that top 10 was the only 10 drivers that finished on the lead lap here tonight. Everybody else finished at least one lap down or more. Anthony DeBarro will come home in the 11th position. Our pole sitter, Dylan Jones, not having the night he was looking for after several incidents with the outside wall. He comes home 12th. Then we have John Abbott coming home in 13th. Doug Roth will get a 14th place finish. Carl Shedd will finish 15th. David Comstock finishes 16th. Then we have AJ Browning in 17th. Brandon Bowie 18th. Bruce Ackerman and Thomas George round out the top 20.
George got caught up in a late race accident after a really strong run. Disappointing end for the number 29's evening, but Stefan Marinac finishes 21st right behind him, and then Austin Koop got 22nd. And then third plus 20 and 23rd was Daniel Everhart after a late race incident. Ashton Crowder finished 24th. Keith Medeiros was 25th on the evening after another strong run got taken away by a little mishap coming out of turn 4 for him. Scott Simley finishes 26th. Trevor Rapallo 27th on the evening. 28th was Nelson Rivera. Gabe Wood 29th, and Dwayne Vincent to round out your top 30.
Mike Kelly will finish in that 31st position. Then we have Sean Boundy in 32nd. 33rd goes to Sean Casto. Jose Gonzalez finishes 34th. And we have Braden Whittaker in 35th. Stephanie Lessentine comes home 36th. Corbin Hemstreet 37th. 38th goes to Eric Arnold. And rounding out the 39-car field here tonight, Randy Yoakum finishes 39th. That was your full field rundown, once again brought to you by RealSimRacing.com. RealSimRacing.com has a league for every iRacing driver, including the Winston Cup Series on Wednesday nights and the Midnight Thunder Speedway Series on Thursday nights. And then, of course, here tonight, the Full Throttle Cup Series on Monday nights. For more information, visit www.realsimracing.com. Once again, they have a league for every driver. And now we're going to catch up with one very ecstatic driver. I believe you, James Pike, have caught up with our race winner, Joseph Tice, down in Victory Lane.
Maybe it's just the film-loving part of me, but I really feel like that we could do with some form of Emerald City reference here when we get to Victory Lane at Kansas, because it's come up all green and checkered and wonderful for Joseph Tice in the 5 machine. Gets the job done, gets the win tonight, and I think before we talk about the end of that race, Joseph, let's talk about coming through all the yellows, all the wrecks, and seeing it all happen around you. I know you were near a lot of the incidents that took place this evening, so how on earth did you get around all of it?
Just patience and trying my best to leave some gaps. I do owe Keith Medeiros an apology. I kind of screwed him up a little bit, but other than that, I was trying to be patient and leave gaps, and that was pretty much it.
And then you come out of that, and after the big wreck there with just under 10 laps to go, all of a sudden it's you and Dave and Andrew up at the top of the field. And just talk a little bit about your race with them there at the end and hanging on when you've got Andrew charging behind you in those last few laps.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Early on in the race, I saw that there was a shorter run and some guys took 2 and I took 4, and I noticed the guys on 2 kind of held their own for a while, and I figured with 15, 20 laps left, it would be worth a shot. So I came out and I was behind Dave, and I had there was one other guy that's on 2 tires, and I was like, okay, well, maybe we give this thing a shot. And yeah, trying to hold off my teammates there at the end, that was pretty intense. I was getting really loose off 2, and I think Andrew was getting a run on me, but he just didn't quite get me down to the corner to 3, so it was crazy.
But I think in the context of this season, maybe the most important thing to note is that you have yourself a win and are now in playoff contention along with your teammates Farney Arns, Washington, and Dylan Jones. How big is that to already have 4 cars that are playoff eligible come September from the Aegis Motorsports stable?
Oh, that's huge. And I think it plays into, we work together really hard to make each other the best we possibly can, and I think it shows. And it was really great for me to get this win because I've had a pretty rough stretch for about the last month, and last week I got a 2nd place, and now I've got a win, so I'm really starting to turn it around. But yeah, this win is huge for me. I just can't thank everybody enough.
And speaking of thanks, is there anyone to spend a moment to thank in particular? Because we always give you the chance. So go ahead. Let us know who makes it happen for the 5 car.
Yeah, got to thank Julio, our team owner. Thank my teammates, Trevor, Dave, Dylan, Andrew, Daniel, Carl Shed. Got to thank Andy Kessler and James Ross. They do a good job spotting for us, and Ross Cano. Andy also does some pretty sweet paint schemes, which is the one I won with, so that was pretty cool. I got to thank the RSR admins. They put on one heck of a league. They put a lot of work into it. Thank you guys for what you guys do up in the booth, and thank my wife for giving me 3 hours every Monday night to come have some fun.
Well, congratulations on your first victory of 2017, Joseph. And if I had any Red Ruby shoes to give you, I'd go ahead and throw them over, but I figure best you can do is just go party on and celebrate. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
So there's your race winner, Joseph Tyson. We'll step away from the 5 car and slide right on over to the next pit stall over, where Brian Macklin has caught up with his teammate, Andrew Farniars.
Yeah, I've caught up with our 2nd place finisher here tonight, Andrew Farnars. Andrew, last week at Talladega, you came home in victory lane, and then Joseph Tice finished 2nd. Tonight, the roles are reversed. Joseph gets the win. You finish 2nd. Take us through those closing laps with you having the 4 fresh tires over the 2 tires of Joseph, and you trying to make the move on him to try to get that race lead away. It was a pretty exciting battle from what we could see up here.
Yeah, I was really trying to back the corners up to get the runoff. Unfortunately, the track really had 1 lane, and I knew that unless I could get to his outside, I wasn't able to get by him. So really trying to back the corners up and get the run. I was able to pull even with him, but Gio, my spotter, told me Dave was pretty close in the mirror, so if I went to the bottom into the corners, Dave probably would have got by me. So just, yeah, happy with the 2nd, but yeah, I mean, just a 1-lane track and just couldn't get the position to take the lead there.
Well, and talk about the 1-lane track and how difficult it is to make those moves and really only having the opportunity to do anything on the restarts. That's the only time tonight where we saw guys be able to go to the bottom of the track and make a move. How frustrating is it and how difficult is it to get yourself into that mentality knowing that you really only have that 1 groove to race with and to make those moves? And how difficult is it to make those passes? We saw you have to come up through the field a little bit. You started 14th here tonight, so you had to work your way up through the field. How difficult was it for you to make those moves throughout the course of this race?
Very, very difficult. I know at the start of the race, I was sitting there riding at about 12th, and I was faster than probably 5 guys in front of me. Just you dive to the bottom, everybody gets a run on that high line. You know, if you can't get him clear, kind of like a slide job, you're going to lose 5 or 6 spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking ahead to next week, we're going to go to a track that's a little bit more wide open. We're heading to the Charlotte Motor Speedway for a pretty exciting race there. What do you expect for the number 47 machine there next week?
I have not actually been there in the Cup car and iRacing yet, so I'm going to need a lot of practice. Expecting a lot of fast speeds. Pretty good race. I know it's a longer race, and should be fun. I'm looking forward to learning the track and getting out there with my teammates and having a good run.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we let you go, just want to give you a chance to say thank you to your sponsors and say hello to any friends or family who makes it happen for you on the number 47 machine, Andrew.
I just want to say thanks to LSRTV. You guys do a great job every week. All the fans coming out and watching. My mom, my dad, my brother, grandfather, Dan, Glenn, all my friends and family, and everybody on this Aegis team: Ross, Carl, Joseph, Trevor, Daniel, Dave, James, Andy, Gio. Great job spotting tonight. Dylan and Bruce. Just we have a great group of guys there, and I can't say thank you enough for all the work they do for me.
All right, well, congrats on your second place finish here tonight at Kansas, and we'll see you next week at Charlotte, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was Andrew Farnars. He finishes second here tonight at the Kansas Motor Speedway. Now I'm going to slide around this beautiful number 47 machine, and I'm going to go catch up with his teammate, David Washington, who finished in the third position here tonight. Dave, you had a rough spell at the short tracks, and now you finally get back to where you have had so much success so far this season. Came up just a little bit short with your third place finish here tonight, but you had a very exciting night nonetheless.
Oh, yeah, definitely. For some reason there, I thought being out front, the car was going to be better. First 20 laps were rough. It just like the car was just super tight. I told Andrew to almost go back around me there at that one point because it was just getting way too tight. And when I was behind him, just tucked up underneath him there, the car was perfect. Turned off, got in the corners nice. Besides that, one little mistake tonight. Got a little loose off of 4, but we didn't wreck it. We had a great run tonight.
Yeah, absolutely you did. And take us through that battle with your teammates there at the end of the race. You tried the two-tire strategy at the end. You had the race lead, but you just couldn't hang on over Joseph Tyson, Andrew Farnars. You were able to battle with Nick Silver with a pretty good little battle between him, but it just came up just a little bit short. Were the two tires that much of a disadvantage, or was it just the fact that they were able to get around you because you slipped up a little bit?
Yeah, that's all it was. The two tires were fine, actually, on the longer runs. It just my car tonight. Once I touched the wall a little bit, the car just wasn't the same. On the restarts there, I tried everything. Tried quick clutching it. It just had no get up and go speed, and I felt bad for the 24 because he was starting right behind me. But I had to do something to try to get this third spot tonight, and I didn't want to get too close to him to where we had touched and put me in the wall or try not to do anything crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys had a really exciting battle there at the end of the race. Was there ever a point when we were getting stretched out there over those long green flag runs that you felt like you could get away from everybody? You had a pretty fast car, and you were able to drive away from your teammates. Did you think you could have held on if that thing had stayed green?
Yeah, we were getting ready for the pit stops there, and I was trying not to overdo it. Usually about half a second to a second, and I won't push it any harder. Because it seems like they couldn't close up, so I just tried to keep it right there. I think if we'd have had that pit stop under green, I think we'd have been maybe out close to 2 seconds. Because I was going right to two tires again. Because the car, like I said, it drove good on two tires.
Well, fortunately, you still came home with a third place finish. Before we let you go, Dave, I just want to give you a chance to say thank you to your sponsors and say hello to any friends or family who makes it happen for you on the number 98 machine.
Yeah, definitely give a shout out. Mom watches it every week. My wife, just the whole Aegis team. This season has just been, I wouldn't say a roller coaster for some and great for others, but as a team, I think trying to get as many of us in there for the chase and, trying to play it out from there would be great. But yeah, the whole Aegis team they're a great bunch of good guys there. Andy for sitting on the box each week. And Julio for putting this team together. you guys for the broadcast each and every week, and RSR for putting this league together.
The lovely and talented Andy Kessler. We always love hearing the thanks to him. He's very much so a loved person here on LSR TV. Congrats on your third place finish tonight. We'll see you next week at Charlotte, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
All right, David Washington finally gets back to a rhythm that he's been looking for. He gets a third place finish here tonight at Kansas. And James, what an exciting race we had here tonight. A bunch of different guys got up front and led laps, but at the end it was the Aegis drivers that came out on top.
Kind of the story of the season, it seems like. They didn't necessarily dominate this race the way they have in some of the other races we've had this year in the Full Throttle Cup Series, but when it mattered, they were there. And from this twisted and crazy twister of a race, I suppose we'll follow the yellow brick road out of Kansas and back. I guess it's home. Well, it's definitely home for me as a native North Carolinian, but home for everybody, really, because you get to Charlotte, and that's where we'll head next week. And that's, a track that everybody knows well. It's one of the first tracks you run, if not the first track you run on the sim. And now you've made it all the way up to the Cup cars here if you're in the Full Throttle Cup Series, and you get to wheel around for one of the longest races of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a very exciting race. I think you're going to see more of the same out of these Aegis drivers. They seem to have their hands wrapped around the speedways very easily this year. They've dominated them so far at the beginning of this season, and I think you're going to see more of that next week at Charlotte. It's going to be interesting to see if one of these guys can get up there and challenge them. Nick Silver has been fast on the speedways as well, and you've also got Anthony DeBarro that could maybe get up there and challenge them. David Comstock. There's quite a few drivers that can get up there and do it. It's just a matter of if things fall their way and they can get up there and actually contend with those guys at the end of this thing.
They've had speed, but haven't quite been able to put it together. So they'll get another shot next week to make it happen and go get their first wins of the season. But for now, we'll wait. We'll bring you coverage of next week's race at Charlotte at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time here in the United States on LSR TV. But until then, we'll say goodnight from Kansas. My colleague up in the booth, Brian Macklin, for our lovely and talented producer, Cisco Scaramuzza, for John Abbott and all of the admins at RealSimRacing.com, and for Laura Lawson, Andy Kessler, and Evan Pasoko at LSRTV, I'm James Pike saying thank you for watching tonight's broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, and we will see you next Monday night from the Old North State. Good night, everyone.